My name is Emily Dabbick. She borrowed my clothes, my makeup, my ideas, then took credit, so I let everyone see who she was without me. I used to think that some friendships were meant to be soft places to land. That some people entered your life because the universe knew you needed them. That's what I believed when I met Mara. We met on the first day of our marketing communications program. I remember she wore this oversized denim jacket and carried an old film camera like she was starring in her own indie movie. She looked confident, effortless, the kind of girl who walks into a room and everyone turns, without her even noticing. Or maybe she noticed, maybe she always did, but on that first day, she caught me fumbling with my tote bag, dropping a stack of printed schedules all over the hallway floor. People stepped over them like they were trash. She crouched down, helped gather them, and handed them back with what looked like genuine kindness. She smiled. "You look like you're new here." "I am," I said, laughing awkwardly. "First time on a campus this big." "Well." She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You're with me now. I know all the shortcuts." That line, "You're with me now," felt like a rescue, like she was pulling me into a world I didn't know how to access. Soon, we were inseparable. Cafeteria lunches, study sessions, late night ramen, watching cheesy dating shows. She'd walk into my dorm room and collapse dramatically on the bed. "You will not believe what Jessica wore today." She'd grown. Or, "We have that networking event tomorrow. Help me pick an outfit or I'll die." She made everything theatrical, fun, and I loved having a best friend. One day, before a small student-led fashion showcase, she stood in my room scanning the rack of clothes in my closet. I had collected vintage pieces and tailored thrift shop finds, not expensive, just unique. "Wow," she murmured, "you have taste." I felt a warm flush of pride. "You can borrow something if you want." She turned, eyes wide. "You sure?" "Yeah," I laughed. "Friends share stuff." She chose a white silk blouse I had spent 3 weekends restoring, hand-washing, steaming, repairing stitches. She didn't ask how much effort I had put in, but she looked radiant in it. She hugged me before leaving. "You saved my life." It felt good. It felt like being needed. That became our rhythm. My jacket for her date, my lipstick for her interview, my shoes when she needed something classy. But each time she returned them, they came back with a story about how she impressed everyone with no mention of where the outfit came from. The first time I noticed the pattern was subtle. Someone complimented her scarf, my scarf, and she smiled, saying, "Oh, I just threw something together." Just threw something together. My hours of styling, of curating, erased. Still, I brushed it off. We were friends. Friends don't keep score. But then came the first real sting. We had a team project for our branding class, and the professor announced we'd present concepts to a visiting agency. It was a big opportunity, the kind that could open doors. I spent almost an entire weekend crafting a pitch, unique angle, fresh messaging. I even designed mock visuals. On Monday morning, I showed it to her. She stared at my laptop screen, silent, eyebrows lifted. "This is good," she whispered. "Should we present it?" I asked, excited. "Together?" She smiled. "Absolutely." But when presentation day came, everything changed. I watched from the back of the lecture hall as she stood at the front of the room, clicking through my slides, my words, my vision. She didn't look back at me once. A girl from another group leaned toward me and whispered, "Wow, she's brilliant." My stomach coiled. My throat tightened. During Q&A, the agency rep leaned forward. "Where did that concept come from?" he asked. Mara smiled. "It was just something I came up with while brainstorming." My ears rang. I waited for her to correct herself, to say my name, to acknowledge the hours I spent shaping that idea, but she didn't. She accepted their praise like it was owed to her. After class, I caught her in the hallway. "Why didn't you say I worked on that with you?" She shrugged. "You showed me," I polished. "That's collaboration." That wasn't polishing. She rolled her eyes, adjusting the strap of her bag. "Emily, relax. It's not that deep." She walked away before I could answer. "Not that deep, not that deep," those words gnawed at me. A week later, she borrowed my heels for an event, a networking party with influencers and local designers. I lent them without thinking because even after that presentation, some part of me still believed she was my friend. The next day I opened Instagram. There she was, wearing my heels, wearing my blazer, wearing my signature red lipstick shade. Caption, styled myself tonight, styled myself. I stared at those words until they blurred. That night something inside me shifted. I didn't scream. I didn't confront her again. I just sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my closet, half empty from the things she had borrowed and forgotten to return. And quietly, I made a decision. If she needed my clothes, my makeup, my ideas, what would happen if one day she had none of them? The first step was simple. I stopped lending. I didn't make an announcement or create drama. I just stopped saying yes. The next time she barged into my room without knocking, her voice was already demanding. I need that charcoal blazer. Emergency. I looked up from my laptop. It's not available. She blinked, confused. What do you mean not available? It means I'm not lending it. She stared at me like I had spoken a language she'd never heard. Okay, she finally said, forcing a laugh, then just give me anything that matches black. You have options. No. I repeated, voice steady. I'm done lending things. Her expression tightened. You're being weird, Emily. But she left. That week marked the start of the smallest, quietest power shift. Suddenly Mara wasn't showing up to events looking effortlessly unique. Suddenly she didn't walk in wearing curated outfits or the exact lipstick shade I spent years hunting for. She began wearing the beige sweatshirt she always complained was too basic. She stopped posting daily outfit stories. Her curated aesthetic started to crack, but the real betrayal hadn't surfaced yet. That came a month later. We were assigned to different teams for the semester's biggest project, a campus-wide social awareness campaign. Whoever won would get their campaign funded and displayed across every digital billboard on campus. It was the kind of thing that becomes a portfolio centerpiece, a moment, a launch pad. During our brainstorming session, I pitched 5 solid ideas. My favorite, the unseen work, a campaign highlighting everyday contributions that go unnoticed. My teammates loved it. We developed mood boards, typography, and a short film concept. I spent hours fine-tuning the pitch deck, practicing transitions, refining messaging. 3 nights before presentations, my team wasn't ready. Our prototype still needed polishing, but we had something solid. Mara didn't. Her team was chaotic, too many egos, no direction. That should have stayed her problem. But then, a girl from her team, someone I barely knew, pulled me aside after class. Hey, I just thought you should know. She hesitated, eyes darting toward the hallway where Mara was laughing with her group. She pitched an idea tonight. The whole team freaked out about how brilliant it was. Okay, I said cautiously. It was called The Unseen Work, same name, same message. My heart stopped beating for a moment. She showed mood boards and sketches. The girl continued. She said she suddenly got inspired. My throat tightened, my face burned, but how did she get the idea? I whispered. The girl shrugged. We don't know, but she acted like it came from her brain. Just figured you'd want to know. I walked out of that building on autopilot. Cold air slapped my face, but I felt nothing. That night, I sat at my desk staring at my computer screen at the hours of work poured into our project. My roommate Tessa sat cross-legged on her bed watching me. You look like you're going to set someone on fire, she said gently. I think she took my idea. Think. I turned toward her. No, I know. Tessa set her phone aside. So, what are you going to do? I don't know. I whispered, but I did know. I wouldn't confront. She thrived on confrontations. Drama fed her. She'd flip it, twist it, make me look insecure. Instead, I waited. Presentation day arrived. Her team went first. The big screen lit up and I felt physically ill. There it was, my title, my concept, my layout, even my color palette. She stood in front of the auditorium smiling like she'd painted the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. When the agency rep asked what inspired this, she said, I wanted to explore how invisible contributions shape communities. It's personal to me, personal to her. I stared at her hands perfectly manicured, gripping my clicker. My teammate leaned toward me and whispered, Isn't this Exactly your idea. I nodded slowly. She stole it. He stared at Mara, furious, say something. But I shook my head, not yet. When it was our turn, I walked up to the front. My team was nervous. We didn't have prototypes as polished as hers, but we had authenticity. I took a breath, and then I deviated from the script. Our project is called The Unseen Work. Mara's head snapped up. But before I explain, I continued, I want to show something. I clicked the remote. The first slide appeared, a screenshot. Date, stamped file folders on my laptop. Time, stamped drafts. Footage of us in our early brainstorming sessions. Whispers rippled through the room. Slide 2. Voice recording transcriptions of our brainstorming night, my narration, my words. Slide 3. Aside. By side comparison, my mood board, her mood board. Identical. My voice shook not from fear, but from clarity. Sometimes, I said into the mic, the hardest work really is unseen, especially when someone else takes the credit. The room fell silent. Mara went pale, her jaw trembled, her voice cracked. You're twisting this. We brainstormed together. You just never. I cut in. You were never part of this project. The professor spoke next. Calm, cold, Mara, step outside. We need to speak privately. She walked out slowly, like she was underwater. I didn't savor it, not yet, because that wasn't the end. It was only the fracture, not the fallout. The fallout would come next, when she realized life without me meant life without her identity. After the presentations, people approached me with sympathetic smiles and awkward apologies. Some thought I'd started a fight. Others didn't know what to say. Mara went into a smaller orbit, quieter posts, fewer invites, but she wasn't finished. She still had audiences to charm. She still had a performance to remodel. I could have exposed her and walked away. I could have laughed it off with friends and let her reputation crumble. But something in me wanted more than a single moment of triumph. I wanted the truth to sit in the light for longer than a headline. I wanted everyone to see the pattern, not just this one theft, but a habit woven through years. I wanted her to experience the emptiness of being admired for someone else's labor. So I made a plan that felt both petty and precise, the kind of thing that takes patience more than cruelty. Step 1. Reclaim my aesthetic. I began collecting evidence quietly. Receipts, saved DM, timestamps, old photo drafts, voice notes. Not to weaponize them immediately, but to build a timeline. I organized everything into folders on my cloud drive and labeled them chronologically. The ritual of sorting soothed me. It made the problem feel manageable. Step 2. Reframe collaboration. I started a casual style exchange. Project with classmates, not a formal event. Just a small weekend pop-up where students could borrow clothes, swap styling tips, and showcase their own original pieces. I invited people I trusted, designers, photographers, even a few influencers who had noticed Mara's pattern over the months. You're doing a pop-up? Mara asked the day I put up the flyer on the campus board. She stood in the doorway, eyebrow arched like it was a curiosity she didn't want to miss. Yeah, I said, calm, it's low-key community thing. She smiled, too wide. Can I help? I can do social. I'm great at social. No, I said simply. This is a project for people who want to share original designs. Her mouth opened. Original, like original as in your own. I finished. Her face tightened. Cool, whatever. She left, but I could feel the gears turning behind those smiles, scheming. I expected she'd try to insert herself. That's what she did when an audience formed. She sniffed opportunity. Step 3. Manufacture public contrast honestly. The pop-up happened on a crisp Sunday. I set up a corner with a rolling rack of my curated pieces, a small mirror, and a Polaroid camera. People came. They tried on outfits, laughed in the mirror, posed. I filmed short clips of them explaining the stories behind the clothes. Tessa helped me edit them into a montage of authentic voices. A designer who made a jacket from recycled banners. A student who saved to buy a vintage dress. a model who used thrift skills to build a capsule wardrobe. Mara showed up late. She hovered at the edge. A few people waved her over. She was magnetic even in limbo. She tried to talk her way into the spotlight, offering branding tips and asking to handle the event's Instagram takeover. "No," I said again, "this is not about marketing tricks. It's about origins." Her jaw clicked like a lock. "Fine," she muttered. I didn't call her out. I let her watch. Then I did something small and deliberate. I posted a behind the scenes story during the event, short, honest clips labeled with dates and creator names. No flair, no snappy captions. Just footage of people explaining how their pieces came to be. The response was unexpected and pure. Students DM'd to say they loved hearing the real stories. An alum who worked at a local studio offered to display the montage in their gallery. Mara's reaction was seismic. For weeks, she'd benefited from a halo of polished images, the curated life. But here, stripped of curation, realness connected deeper. People weren't just admiring clothes. They were connecting with history and effort. I watched as social media comments shifted from "look at Mara's outfit" to "that designer's story hit me." Step 4. Amplify the record. Over the next month, I invited key people who had witnessed the pattern. A fashion editor who had complimented Mara a month earlier. A student who'd borrowed my scarf. A professor who'd heard about both teams' pitches. I asked them to speak, not about betrayal, but about authorship, how contributions become credited, why origin matters. I was careful. I never framed it as revenge. I framed it as an education. When the campus digital board opened for submissions again, I submitted a short documentary, The Unseen Work Origins. It featured my pop-up footage, interviews, and careful side-by-side timelines showing how ideas evolved. I included timestamps, drafts, and voice notes where I'd narrated initial concepts. Not accusatory, just transparent. 2 weeks later, it ran across campus screens during prime evening hours. I remember standing on the steps of the student center while the film played. The night air smelled like wet pavement and popcorn. Students paused mid-conversation to watch. Heads turned. Someone started clapping. The montage finished with a simple line: "Credit the work. Honor the origin." Mara stood across the lawn with a group of friends. Her face was a mask. She had nowhere to look but at the screen that quietly told the story she tried to own. She didn't storm off, didn't yell. She simply stood there, small in a sea of faces. That was the point. I wanted the truth to settle around her like dust, visible but quiet, undeniable. People approached me afterward not to gloat, but to ask how they could be better collaborators. A professor asked if I'd lead a seminar on authorship. A small studio asked to feature student collaborations with clear credits. I'd expected to feel vindicated. Instead, I felt hollow and strangely relieved, like closing a door I'd left ajar for years. That night, Mara texted, "Why'd you do that?" she wrote. I stared at the screen. My thumb hovered. "Because I wanted you to know what it feels like to be seen for the work you actually did," I thought. Instead, I typed, "I wanted people to see the origins." Her reply was simple, "You're dramatic." I didn't respond. Later, from my window, I watched her silhouette move across the quad, small, hurried, trying to patch an identity that had been quietly unspooling. I had unset the stage. Now I just watched how she'd rebuild herself if she could. 2 weeks passed. Winter crept in, early frost on the windows. Scarves replacing denim jackets. Campus felt different, slower, quieter. In that silence, I noticed something. I no longer felt her shadow on my back. No more frantic knocks on my door. No more "borrow this" texts. No more forced quick selfies with my lipstick. Mara didn't ask to borrow anything anymore. Because she knew I would say no. And it wasn't just the clothes or the makeup or the academic credit. She had lost her audience. The people who used to orbit her, amused by the spectacle, now watched with a lingering suspicion. Like they were asking, what's real and what's stolen? I didn't need to answer that question anymore. The fallout, though, revealed itself in quieter ways. One day, I walked into our marketing lab to return camera equipment. I saw Mara alone at the editing station, staring at an empty timeline on the screen. No color palettes, no mood boards, no neatly arranged drafts, just a blank project. She looked tired not physically, but emotionally drained. Like someone who'd run out of versions of herself to play. "You forgot your scarf," she said suddenly without looking at me. I frowned. "What scarf?" She reached into her bag and pulled out a familiar green wool scarf, one I'd assumed was lost months ago. She placed it on the desk gently, almost tenderly. I think this was yours." There was no confidence in her voice, none of her usual cleverness, just truth, stripped of performance. I took the scarf slowly. "Thanks," she finally turned to me, eyes dull. "Everyone thinks I'm a joke now." I hesitated. "People don't think you're a joke." She laughed bitterly. "No, they think I'm a fraud, which is worse." Silence settled between us, heavy, uncomfortable. She twisted a pen between her fingers. "You know, I never thought of myself as someone without ideas. I really thought that I just absorbed inspiration well." I said nothing. She swallowed, but I guess I was absorbing the wrong thing. I wanted to feel triumphant. I wanted satisfaction. I wanted that cinematic punch of justice where she collapses into guilt and I rise like a phoenix. But what I felt was something softer, more complicated, a fragile sympathy. "You could have just created your own," I said quietly. She nodded, almost choking on her breath. I didn't know how. Her honesty stunned me. I had expected excuses, deflection, but instead, I watched a person realize they had no identity without someone else to imitate. And maybe that was the real revenge, not humiliation in front of a crowd, not exposure on a digital billboard. The real revenge was her sitting with the emptiness that used to be masked by everything she borrowed from me. She looked at me one last time. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I believed her. But apologies don't rebuild trust, they acknowledge the ruins. I folded my scarf and walked toward the exit. At the door, I paused and turned back. "You're not a joke," I said, "but you have to learn how to be yourself without copies." She blinked hard, held her breath, and nodded. That was the last real conversation we ever had. Life moved forward. I got selected for an internship with the media studio that showcased our documentary. I started hosting a weekly a workshop on campus called Origin Hour, where students could bring something they were creating, a design, a pitch, a poem, and talk openly about where it came from. Not for credit, not for applause, just honesty. People showed up, they brought ideas, they brought vulnerability, and my life finally felt like mine, not something I was constantly trying to justify or protect. One afternoon, months later, I saw Mara again. She wasn't surrounded by people. She wasn't performing. She sat on a bench sketching in a notebook. She didn't see me. For the first time, she wasn't copying anyone. She was alone with herself, her real self, and I realized sometimes revenge isn't destruction. Sometimes revenge is walking away and letting someone face who they are without you. I used to think the most painful thing she ever did was steal from me. But I was wrong. The most painful thing was seeing how small she felt without my identity to wear. And in the end, the most powerful thing I ever did was stop giving her anything to take. I didn't ruin her. I just removed myself. She did the rest.